Converging Media, A New Introduction to Mass Communication, 5th edition, Chapter 4, Audio Media, Music Recordings and Radio, Part 1. Chapter 4 provides information on the history of radio as intertwined with the history of other mass media and can be traced back to the late 19th century. Several inventors across the globe developed the technology to allow the wireless services to blossom. The U.S. military also invested in the radio broadcast industry toward the end of World War I. Nowadays, almost every household in North America owns at least one radio receiver. Many countries across the world still rely heavily on radio broadcasting. Although the digital revolution has changed the traditional distribution patterns of music because consumers can stream and download their own music preferences, radio remains a strong source of news and entertainment. That said, the history of America's music is closely related to social movements and culture as well. Whereas Caucasian performers dominated the airways in the early days of radio, the strength of the music industry in the 21st century is its diversity and the blending of many cultural traditions and musical genres. More and more independent labels are profiting from changing distribution patterns, allowing indie artists to make a larger profit than they would from signing with major labels. After reading the chapter, you should be able to do the following. Define the nature and features of the recording arts, i.e. music. Discuss the history of the recording arts. Describe how the recording industry works. Identify the changes digitization, the internet, and file sharing services have brought to the recording industry business model. Describe the basic functions of radio. Discuss the history of radio. And describe how the radio industry works. The recording industry. Similar to other media entertainment enterprises, a few very large firms and subsidiaries of even larger media corporations control the music industry. Because record labels do not profit from music that lacks strong mass market appeal, styles tend to fit well-established genres, even to the point of being formulaic and homogeneous. Distinctive functions of the recording industry. Recorded music serves a variety of functions, primarily entertainment and cultural transmission. Education is an important form of cultural transmission. Children especially listen to recorded music, sometimes the same songs over and over, learning vocabulary, music rhythms, and the pleasure of dancing. Musical tastes help people define themselves as members of a particular social group. Music can transmit culture both verbally and visually as fans adopt new expressions and emulate new styles across ethnic and socioeconomic boundaries. Cultural transmission, then, is the process of passing on culturally relevant knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values from person to person or group to group. A great example of this is a dance move crave that often occur in urban culture. So, for instance, like The Dad by Cam Newton and the I Heart Memphis Boys. Some argue that such cultural transmission has a potential dark side, however, a debate that intensified after the 1981 launch of MTV, whose 24-hour format required scores of videos to fill airtime. Artists then and now may combine controversial lyrics with provocative videos that critics argue send young, impressionable viewers socially unacceptable messages and may desensitize them to violence against women, for example, or provoke Satanism. With the rise of YouTube and other online video services, the debate has intensified as an even broader array of potentially objectionable content is available on demand. Although MTV, YouTube, or other sources of music video may not always represent the finest work of this commercial, profit-driven enterprise, intend to entertain, the recording industry also produces music that rises to the level of true art. Whether that genre be jazz, opera, pop, or hip-hop, countless studio recordings have earned critical praise for their enduring cultural impact. The recording arts developed in the 1870s, becoming the first medium of mass communication not based on print. They predated mass media cinema at the turn of the century, and radio, invented in the 1890s, did not develop a mass medium until the 1920s. In 1877, Thomas Edison patented his first talking machine, the phonograph. Using a tinfoil cylinder to record telephone messages, Edison held a monopoly in the recording industry for 9 years until telephone pioneer Alexander Graham Bell and inventor Charles Tainter invented an improved audio recording device called the graphophone. This used beeswax rather than tinfoil, which impacted the sound. Columbia Phonograph Company soon entered the picture with its own technology, selling recordings on wax cylinders that could be played on coin-operated machines. The Victor Talking Machine Company also launched a graphophone, which was developed by Emil Berliner. It used a flat disc rather than a cylinder to record sound. Few dramatic changes occurred in music recording technology over the first 100 years. Even in the mid-1950s, creation of grooved vinyl long-play LP albums at 33 RPM, aka revolutions per minute, allowing playing times of 40 to 45 minutes. Electromagnetic tapes, such as 8-track tapes and later cassettes, created in 1965, actually provided poorer sound quality than LPs, but consumers were willing to trade audio quality for portability. Compact disc CDs, developed in 1980, were the first conveyor of digitally recorded songs, and the first real technological breakthrough in the recording art since Edison's time. So not only does digital technology improve the sound quality of older recordings by removing unwanted noises, but it also allows for easy creation of duets by live and dead singers, such as the song Unforgettable by Nat King Cole and his daughter Natalie, as well as Aaliyah and Chris Brown on They Don't Know, and recently Tupac Shakur and Kendrick Lamar on the outro to Mortal Man, which is on the album To Pimp a Butterfly. Your text talks at length about the historical aspects of recorded music as it concerns sounds and types of music created in the Tin Pan Alley, Hollywood, rock and roll, as well as other music genres. Game changers like Detroit's Berry Gordy Jr., who also started Motown Records Company, gave black artists, who often influenced much of the work done by whites, the opportunity to write songs, produce, and perform their own music. On the corporate side of recording, a handful of companies controlled the industry by 1909. Thus, a three-way corporate oligarchy dominated the music industry into the 1950s, when a variety of notable industry-wide changes set in. These included greater competition due to the growth of rock and roll and diverse new recording labels like Motown. Similar to other media companies, record labels have been consolidating. In 1998, there were 6 major labels, and in 2005, only 5, including Bertelsmann Music Group, BMG, and EMI. In 2008, Sony Music absorbed BMG, and in 2012, Universal Music Group acquired EMI. Now, once again, 3 companies have oligarchical control, each a subsidiary of a larger media empire: Sony Entertainment, Warner Music Group, and Universal Music Group, UMG. UMG alone controls more than 25% of the worldwide market for recorded music. And in page 103 of your text, it shows you a more detailed table of these companies and how these mergers occurred. Nevertheless, revenues have declined steeply since 2001, the beginning of the digital piracy era. In 2000, worldwide recorded music revenues were $36.9 billion, and by 2013, global music salaries and sales were $15 billion, including sync revenues, payment for use of a song, and other soundtracks such as commercial or TV show, what we often call the remix, and where samples are often purchased or how they're purchased. The industry has struggled to stem the flood of free versions of mashups of songs found in file sharing services, and the RIAA and IFPI claim that file sharing services encouraging illegal downloads are to blame for the decline in sales. Throughout much of the 20th century, the basic business model in the recorded music industry involved creation, promotion, and distribution. These 3 main activities have not changed fundamentally, although some of their components have been altered in the digital age. Creation, acting as gatekeepers, the major record labels sign talent and subsequently support these artists in the creation and recording of music. Because of their financial investment in the process, they have historically the greatest financial rewards, with most artists receiving royalties of about 10%. So being signed to a major label does not mean that a struggling artist has finally made it. Take into consideration the girl group TLC, who had a VH1 special about how they were actually bankrupt, even though they were some of the most popular artists of the time. Promotion is where we promote artists. Promoting artists and their music is crucial to commercial success. Artists perform in concerts for which additional royalties are received, but music gains exposure largely through other mediums: TV, film, radio, video games, and the internet. Major labels get considerably more airtime than indies on radio, which is primarily a promotional vehicle. Traditionally, labels provide stations with free copies of recorded music and music videos in exchange for getting them played on their stations and channels. The payola, pay for play scandal, where cash gifts were given to radio DJs for record labels to exchange for greater airplay of the label's artists or most recent songs, became popularized in the 1950s and is now illegal. Distribution is where record labels make copies from a master version and send the albums, tapes, or CDs to local retail outlets for the consumers. Online stores such as Amazon act much like their physical counterparts. A part of this is long tail marketing, where distribution allows businesses to succeed by selling a greater variety of items but fewer of each. So sometimes if you go to, say, like a mom and pop shop that sells CDs, they may only have 5 versus having 15 or 20. Digital media and the internet have had a profound impact on distribution. Consumers no longer have to buy a physical product. They can download songs through a service or via a la carte means, which people are better able to personalize their musical experience. Pricing structure. The pricing structure for recorded music is, of course, key in determining income for the label, the artist, and others in the distribution chain. Obviously, this has changed dramatically from the pricing of vinyl LPs in the 1970s to CDs and now digital copies of today. Online prices of music are about $10 on iTunes and even cheaper on Amazon or independent artist launch sites. Keep in mind that for CDs that are produced and sold, they cost $1 per CD with artist and producer royalties at $2 per album. Marketing also costs about 50 cents on a dollar. Labels typically have a gross profit of $5 per CD sold, so you can see how this is a major issue. Critics argue that the music industry and major record labels have only themselves to blame for the general decline in music sales. Rather than embracing early on the potential of digital technologies and the internet for generating new kinds of revenue streams, they resisted this change, which is extremely problematic given the need from their consumers. Security copyrighted material remains a prime concern for record labels. Their past initiatives in digital rights management, aka DRM, such as limiting digital copies of purchased music, have been viewed as heavy-handed. DRM is far more common online and is used to restrict either the types of devices that can play the digital songs or the length of time that it can be played. Since 2001, the recording industry has sued various file sharing services and internet service providers for their misuse of digital products. These suits have impacted organizations like Napster, LimeWire, as well as individuals who have shared or downloaded music illegally. And all of us have probably experienced this if we are trying to download something, or we may have downloaded something on iTunes to iPod or to an Apple approved device, and then you may try to burn a CD of your own, or you may try to transfer it to another device. Oftentimes you hit a roadblock, and that is due to DRM. This completes Chapter 4, Part 1. Please click on the next video, which is below, which will be Part 2 of Chapter 4.